Welcome to Doc Trailers, your source for information on documentary films. Today, Paul's going to be interviewing Christina Antonakos-Wallace, director, producer, camera, and editor of the new documentary From Here. Let's take a look at the trailer.
I got my first hate mail, and it was addressed to me personally. It says, "Go the fuck back from where you came from. Drop dead, bitch." That's it.
Ich bekomme immer eingeimpft. Wo ist mein Wurzelhaar? Ich muss mich halt hier mutieren, um klarzukommen.
Da draußen bin ich nicht erwünscht, man beschimpft mich, man bespuckt mich. Aber ist mir scheißegal, weil hier drin, da bin ich da ein Teil davon. Und dieses Gefühl soll mein Sohn auch haben.
This country has never really seen a dude with a turban in popular culture.
I've had to hide for so long, but I have to let it out. I can't take it anymore. I can't live like this anymore, and I exist. My name is Tanya Matos, and I'm undocumented, unafraid, and unapologetic. This is what democracy looks like! No one deserves to go through this.
And if you've ever been teased, harassed, threatened,
We are challenging what it means to belong.
Okay, Paul, take it away.
And welcome to another adventure here in doctrailers.com land. Today we are so privileged to be talking to Christina Antonakos-Wallace, who's made an amazing film with 4 protagonists related to immigration and the problems of immigration. And it's called From Here. And welcome, Christina. Really happy to have you on this program. I am so enthusiastic about what you did, the way it looks, the way it feels. And I noted that you were a youth activist and you worked for the UN High Commission for Refugees for a while. And I guess that kind of brought these topics closer to you. And then it just opened into this world that you exposed the rest of us to. How did you find this story?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Paul. It's really lovely to get to talk to you about From Here. How did I find the story? I mean, I think like so many people, the story finds you and kind of forces you to tell it if you're willing to allow yourself to be the storyteller. So I wouldn't say that I was searching to tell the story. I think that I was carrying the pieces of the story, and they kind of came together and knocked on my door and said, okay, you're looking for this out in the world and you're not quite seeing it and finding it and hearing it in other places, if that makes sense. So in my case, you're right, I became an organizer as a young person. But that was sort of happening in parallel with other parts of my identity formation. So I was raised in the Greek American community, which is kind of organized around the Orthodox Church, which is a relatively conservative institution. And it was a challenging place to be kind of finding myself between my sort of progressive politics and then this institution that was really conservative and was really organized around certain ideas about culture being preserved and held on to. So I felt really confused about what did this sort of traditional conservative community that I was growing up with have to do with the values around change and liberation and transformation that I was so drawn to. And I felt like I was going to be sort of abandoning my ancestors in a certain way by pursuing my own beliefs, if you can say that. I'm trying to keep it kind of simple. So the first name of the film was called With Wings and Roots. And that ended up becoming our impact project, which we still have a very robust impact project that developed parallel to the film. But I think of that as kind of one way of looking at the film. How do all of us and each of us both have roots and wings? How do we have a chance for that kind of individual growth and expression, and also the connection to our ancestry, traditions, communities? And so that was a starting place for me. But because my activism work was around racial justice, I was really looking through the lens of race. So I was interested in my family's immigration experience. And then that led me to looking at immigration policy much more globally. I spent some time living in Greece, and I was mistaken there several times for being an Albanian immigrant because I spoke Greek but made grammatical mistakes, and I didn't look to them like a typical American, sort of wearing a hoodie and whatever the ideas of what Americans look like. So I had just really a kind of interesting confluence of things. And I was going to school in New York, which is obviously a city of immigrants. So I was really interested in young people who were pushing the boundaries of our ideas of national identity and belonging to help us actually understand our global belonging and help us understand ways of relating to this idea of movement and migration that are not only about this being a problem, but also a reality, an opportunity, a part of life, a part of flourishing. So I was looking at young people who had vision and who were really approaching these conversations in different ways, and hoping that along the way they would guide me as well to better understanding myself, which absolutely happened. Yeah. So that was a little bit circuitous, but hopefully
that's the beautiful thing. You jump in, and beyond making the film, you probably brought this and you allowed this into your life. You became vulnerable to it and let it change you. Otherwise you can't explain why somebody spends 20 years or 10 years or 6 years or 5 years on a film. It's like, no, you want that intimacy with the topic because there's something about it that's allowing you to change and be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people assume, I think that I worked on this project, because I'm a white American, albeit somebody who has a little bit different experience than a lot of white Americans in terms of growing up as part of a kind of an ethnic community, but that my connection to this was about sort of a charitable impulse, which it was really not. It was really about my own transformation and connecting with other people who were struggling with their own sense of belonging as well. And so I think that when I look at the four protagonists in the film, there's parts of each of them that I absolutely are impulses in me that when I interviewed them, connected with them, I wasn't thinking this when I chose them. But in the editing process, you realize that you've found people who kind of mirror things in yourself. And those are also things that are just, common in the human condition. I don't want to say they overly are reflections of me, but just we actually are much more similar to people than different from them. And so I think that's my approach to filmmaking, is also just like, I'm interested in that connection. I'm less interested in finding people who are sort of like exotic and different, although they might look exotic and different to somebody who has that attitude towards them. But my interest in my way of approaching them is that we are very similar and that we're very connected, even if we have different experiences. But that also, it takes time to build that relationship and build that understanding and be able to get past the things that seem like the barriers between you and another person, whether that's language, whether that's, all kinds of things, culture, race, class, location, gender, million things that seem different between you and another person. And then you realize, oh my God, but we both are very, Kim and I, one of the protagonists in the film, he's constantly traveling to do his art. He's constantly kind of living between countries. And if you can imagine making this film, I was jumping back and forth between Germany and the US. I was working with people from all over the world. And at some point I realized like Kim and I are basically living parallel lives, even though I wouldn't have realized that the first time he and I sat down and had coffee together.
I really want to congratulate you. I think this documentary has this really beautiful, delicate balance. You don't have a standard narrative track. You let 4 different people tell the story, and then this weave. It's this like really amazing weave, and how that comes together, and how that comes into like a whole pattern. I think that you just did a beautiful job with making that all those 4 characters work towards the whole and understanding of that. I'm highly complimentary of what you did here. You're a wonderful director.
Thank you, Paul.
I was
Thank you.
going to
Well,
ask
I
you,
appreciate that.
I was going to ask you, you've got some upcoming screenings, and we want to know more about how people can see this project, interact with this project, request it, license it, set up screenings. What can you share with us about what comes next from here?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Well, the film will be broadcast on the World Channel, on America Reframed and PBS in June of 2023. So it will be available to most American households through the World Channel, which is very, very, very exciting, because my ultimate goal for this film was always that it would be available to as wide of an audience as possible. So it's thrilling that it's going to be free for the public. But we're also doing screenings all over the world right now. And really, I say that because this was always a global project about how young people are reimagining migration and belonging. So we are doing screenings not just in the US and Germany, where the film is home, but also quite a few other countries. So if you're interested in hosting a screening, it can be anything from a community center to a theater to a church to a mosque. I mean, we're open to all kinds of settings and partnering, and we have screening fees, but also are really interested in getting the film out there. So the idea for me is really about reciprocity. So if somebody needs to use the film and they don't have any financial resources, can they support by giving us a nice write-up in the local paper, or helping us find a way to spread the word? There's lots of ways to be reciprocal, or just be doing good work, and we want to support them. So I think that, yeah, anyone who wants to connect, From Here Film is our film website. Our impact website is withwingsandroots.org. We have really pretty robust immigration history timelines, several educational curricula that you can use if you are an educator of any kind, and a story collection of people that I interviewed as part of the process who didn't make it into the film, but whose stories nevertheless were powerful. So there's a lot of free resources online, and we're on social media at From Here Film. Just reach out to me at Christina@withwingsandroots.com, and I'm happy to connect about ways to get the film out there.
And how was your experience with the film festivals? It kind of came at maybe a strange time. It was like COVID time.
Oh yeah,
But
festivals were rough, I would say. We were set to premiere at the Human Rights Watch Film Festival in London on March 17th of 2020. So I got to the festival and was there for the opening night, and ended up being the only filmmaker who made the journey, even though we were all required to be there. But because of COVID, they changed that, and then the festival closed down the next day. So almost all of our festivals were virtual, and we had like many filmmakers, I was devastated, because to work for 15 years on something, and then you're just communicating with people through email and chat box on a Zoom Q&A, if you're lucky, was hard. I'm sure many people who watch these videos can understand that if they're filmmakers. But I think the beautiful thing is that things are still possible now, and people are still open to a film that it's a few years old if the topic is relevant. And obviously this is not something that goes away after a few years. So we've been finding that the interest is still there, and we're kind of making up for the lack of festival screenings with events now, whether we're able to travel. I mean, that is another thing. A lot of people are willing to do hybrid and virtual Q&As and things like that, where they do an in-person screening and then we Zoom in for the Q&A. So we're making up for it. It's very, very rewarding to connect with real people and hear people's reactions to the film through their own voice, as opposed to this virtual stuff. So I'm grateful for all the festivals for doing their best to try to stay afloat in the midst of COVID. And it was a tough time for everyone. But I'm certainly looking forward to being able to travel to festivals in the future with future films and actually be able to give my protagonists a hug in person and their families, and the things that you kind of live for at the end of the race, those moments of celebration.
Yes, and I just really think that you have very robust outreach, and I think the reason that people are, to eventize your film, have people show up, have people discuss it, it really drives it deeper than the old thing was, a bunch of people in the dark see the film, they all walk out.
Right.
We're not doing that anymore, and really that is synergism. It just increases the potential of what you just did. You spent this number of years on it. Any director spends this number of years on it. People see it and then they walk out. Well, why that? That's not it. That doesn't cut it anymore. It's like, no, we got to talk about it. I showed up and now I want more understanding and more contextualizing of it. And I want it to change me. I opened myself to this and now I want to change as you were changed in that process of making it. That's a beautiful thing.
Right. Yeah, I think so as well. I think we have a real opportunity for those of us who are doing filmmaking or documentary filmmaking, but really any kind of live art, whether it's theater or something else, to capture the energy in the room after people have an experience and really give people a chance to synthesize what they've just experienced and make it meaningful for them and personal for them. And not every piece of art is really set up for that, but there are lots of pieces where that energy can be really made powerful for change and for healing and for all kinds of things. So I'm grateful that I stuck with it, because there were certainly moments, and I'm sure, again, if there's filmmakers on here, we all have doubts about our ability to withstand the kind of the blows of trying to make films with no funding and so little industry support and whatever. So even after the film came out, it's like, can I keep doing this impact work even though I want to, but I'm tired and the world's closing down and what's the point, but I'm grateful that whatever the universe provided, people around me who believed and collaborators who hung in there with me, and that we're here and able to see the fruits of people really saying, yes, we want this, we want to show this. And I just had somebody from Germany who was working with undocumented people in Germany, but also people who are trying to leave Senegal, and they have a center in Senegal wanting to show the films. It's like, these are people from all over the world who are connecting with this, that if I had just been like, well, I got some laurels, who cares? I'm tired, moving on, I would never have gotten, for me personally, that real satisfaction, but also for the impact that we were hoping to have, we wouldn't have had it. So I'm just grateful that folks stuck with me, because it's not about one person powering through. It's about having a community of people who can help you when you're at your wit's end, so you can stick with it.
Yeah, you championed them, and then they championed you when you were out of gas. That it's as soon as you hear that draw and the phone call has come in and the emails, you go, yeah, it's all. You're a beginner all over. It's like, I love this. But when it gets quiet, it's like, that's hard. Well,
yeah.
Amen for all the wonderful work that you've done. So appreciate you making the time for us here today at doctrailers.com. And we look forward to seeing your film on PBS. So was it World
Channel?
World Channel. And any community screenings that might be around, you can check the site here for more details. And thank you for sticking with us and watching this amazing film and this great trailer. And I'm so grateful to you, Christina.
Thank you, Paul. Grateful for you as well. Thanks for what you're doing.